Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Second edition of one of the TUZ Ventures webinars. Today, we're going to be focusing on the fintech part. We're going to have very interesting panel and very interesting startups and very interesting government folks. As an introduction, I will say that many of you, as our Central Asia, are asking us, hey, Hervé, what's really going on over there? And especially in the fintech part. So we felt that, okay, we can do something. And on the other hand, we've got in Central Asia, a bunch of folks who are interested to engage with international investors, other techies. So we felt that, hey, why don't we do something specific over fintech and create this platform where we're going to put those two ends together. So today is very much a discovery. We're very lucky to have, on the one hand, Puon Penn, a good friend, becoming a good friend, based in the Valley. And we have Ivan, Wong at Ant. I haven't introduced them to you. That would be the case right now. So this is a way for them as investors, potential investors, and guys interested in Central Asia to see what's going on from abroad. An interesting perspective because they haven't really observed what's going on there. On the other hand, we have government folks, startups, and a bunch of guys who are sort of willing to see what entities and individuals, investors like Puon and Ivan are thinking. So we're not going to waste too much time here with presentations. You already know our good friend Paul, who's been all over the world. He was present during the previous edition. And let's just start right away with the agenda first. Zari, if you can show it again. We're going to be looking, first we're going to have the speakers, interactions. We're going to discuss about the interest, what they've done so far. Then we're going to have startups presenting. And this is the best way for our friends, Ivan and Puon, to dive into the fintech space. And then we're lucky to have country profiles with a number of government folks. We're going to be talking about what's so good about the country. Very important. In Central Asia, you do business with the private and the public sector. And then concluding our remarks, and you'll be introduced to our judges. So let us start first. Puon, my good friend, we've been speaking for a while. You've been doing a number of things. And you mentioned that you're interested in going to frontier markets. So why don't you introduce yourself? And then, we can engage and dig deep about your interest in Central Asia.
Okay, Puon? Well, thank you. And appreciate the intro, Hervé, and a pleasure to participate in this panel and looking forward to engaging discussions with all of you who've joined here, and hoping all of you are safe and sound, and as well as all of your family. My name is Puon Penn. I have been with Wells Fargo Bank in the United States for the past 2 decades. I've ran a lot of businesses, most recently starting and running our venture investing practice, which is investing in a variety of different technology startups from early stage all the way to late stage, Series D, E, F, if you will. I also was on the investment committee for our Startup Accelerator program, which is a program where we invest in primarily fintech types of startups, but also other types of technologies where it fit a strategic interest and need of the bank. As you know, Wells Fargo is one of the large systemically important financial institutions in the world, with over $2 trillion of assets and over 100 different lines of businesses there. I, as of a little over a month ago, left Wells Fargo to work on a new platform. It's not official yet, so I can't mention that, but the new platform will be entirely focused really on more impact investing, which includes not only sustainability, climate tech related investing, but certainly looking at other types of impact, whether it's fintech that looks to improve the quality of life for people, and particularly some of the least developed countries in the world. And so that's the new platform. I can't quite mention them yet because it's not quite official yet, but that's the lens that I'm going into this discussion. So.
Okay. So when we met, you had mentioned your interest for frontier markets. You're going to go into Southeast Asia, but certainly Central Asia was sort of intriguing. That's how we sort of built the relationship. So if you can tell us a little bit, your potential interest there, the verticals you could be looking at, and how you plan eventually to grow in that region.
Well, to be honest, we're looking at under the new platform that I'm working. We're certainly interested in looking at countries that are still in the developmental stage because we have a interest in more impact, and so we're going to stay away in places from which traditional venture and PE investors are already present. So that's, I think, part of the interest there in terms of looking at Central Asia or Africa or parts of Southeast Asia which are not receiving the types of investments that currently are receiving. I think your second question was in regards to what's interesting about Central Asia, in addition to the fact that it is an area that's not receiving enough of the innovation financing there. And again, I think it's a question that when I'm looking at investment, it's not obviously just about the technology, it's about the teams and the ecosystem that's present to support that team and its potential growth. And so, as you can imagine, when you go out of Silicon Valley, where I'm from, obviously it's more challenging in that perspective. That even if you find great technology, and even if you find a good management team, it becomes challenging from an investor perspective to think about all the other necessary resources that the team is going to need for them to succeed. Namely, a deep supporting cast of potential other investors, follow-on investors, strategics that can provide partnership with those companies, with the management team, and certainly the depth of talent as the company succeeds and grows and finds the need to add additional team members to carry forward their work. So those are probably some of my concerns with regards to frontier markets.
Okay, and what about now, the narrow focus, fintech?
I think, fintech is interesting. In my prior roles, we've invested in a few fintech startups, and all of those are outside of the United States. And
which markets?
Specifically, primarily in Southeast Asia. We've done a few in Europe as well. And then in those cases, they are fintech related startup, not in the lending space. I think that's a very difficult area, no matter where you go in the world, but they are fintech enabling startups. The challenge, I think, in a fintech space, and one of the reasons why it's a very small proportion of our portfolio in the past, is because in developed countries like the US and the EU, from my perspective, I think you have a very, very difficult challenge for fintech startups for a couple of different reasons. One is that the regulatory environment makes it very, very difficult for you to scale, particularly if you're in the lending space or anything that potentially touches the actual financial sector, right? Our regulatory institutions, are designed to safeguard the way, and unfortunately that also means keep things the way they are. And so that makes it very difficult for new entrants to kind of come and disrupt that. Number two is that I think it's in developed countries, there's already an infrastructure in place for handling, everything from lending to payments and so on and so forth. And you can say that it's not optimal. You can say that it's not as efficient as it could be, but it's already there. It's a sunk cost.
Okay.
And there's already habits that have been formed. The infrastructure has all been formed, and it's very difficult to dismantle all of that for incremental improvements. And so I think that's where you find it's very difficult to scale anything in developed countries. And then the third part I would say is that, behavior, particularly in the consumer fintech space, behavior in the US and Europe to some extent is already cemented, right? People, even though checks are really outdated, people are used to writing checks, and credit cards may be outdated, but people are used to using credit cards. And so that the adoption challenge is very interesting. And so when you look at frontier markets, it's conversely interesting from that perspective, because the things that make it very difficult for new startups to disrupt in developed countries are the benefits if you're looking at frontier markets, right? You don't have all these challenges, or you have it, but it's a lot less barriers to entry for new entrants. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm more bullish in the fintech space for frontier markets.
Thanks. By the way, the regulatory aspect, we'll be speaking about it when the country profiles will take place. Thanks a lot for this chat and intro. Moving on to Ivan. Ivan, how are you? Ivan Wong. Hi. So congratulations. We're not going to talk about the big elephant in the room. Let us talk about, if you can give a brief intro of yourself, and then let's dive into some of the stuff you've done in frontier markets. I know that you guys went to Nigeria, Africa, Pakistan. So introduction, who is Ivan Wong, and ends in frontier markets?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, it's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm not sure where you are based, maybe good morning.
All over the world.
Good afternoon.
From San Francisco to Tokyo to Nairobi.
Yeah. So this is Ivan from Ant Group. I'm from the international investment team at Ant, and I'm based in Hong Kong. And for myself, I've joined Ant for about almost 4 years now, which is sounds to be a short period, but if you think about the history of Ant, we are founded in 2014 as a group. So it's been quite some time with the company. And before Ant, I was with HSBC in the TNT banking team. And then for about 4 years, and before that, I was a strategy consultant with the Boston Consulting Group, also based in Hong Kong. So that's a quick background about myself. And as for our investment in frontier market so far, I think for Ant Group, our bread and butter business is in payment or e-wallet, specifically in China, where we are maybe we're the biggest e-wallet players in the country, where our e-wallet is being used in a wide variety of use case, where you can use our e-wallet to make payment for your breakfast, make payment when you take a ride to your work, make a P2P transfer to a friend, pay for your bills, pay for your utilities, etc. And so when we started our international strategy about 5-6 years ago, what we are thinking is that, hey, what are the markets that are to China 10 years ago, right? Or 15 years ago, and where those markets, the financial infrastructure are not as well developed as the Western markets. And maybe there's a case that we can replicate the success story of Alipay e-wallets to those frontier markets. And that's where we all started. And since then, in the past 5 to 6 years, we have invested or formed a e-wallet JV in more than 10 countries, predominantly in developing Asian countries, in the like of Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, And then for frontier market, I would say an obvious example would be like what you mentioned is that we also invested in a company in Pakistan, and we have also invested in a e-wallet company in Bangladesh. So yeah, so that's what we are trying to do, is that we take our growth story, our success story in China, and we'll try to replicate to other parts of the world. And what we want to do is that
we're losing you a bit, Ivan.
Want to use our technology. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that we hope to use technology to make the people in the developing countries or frontier markets to be financially included, so they have access to payment, and later on they will also have access to lending that are in technology.
Okay. Can you give us an example of penetrating frontier market where precisely you've entered and combined this developmental aspect as well as straight up profit-oriented perspectives? Hello?
Yeah. So let's take the Bangladesh example, right?
Bangladesh, okay.
Can you hear me? Is it okay? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's better. There was a truck passing by.
GDP per capita in the country is less than $2,000, and it's a huge market with more than 200 million of population, right? And in terms of banking infrastructure, the whole country, there are I believe less than like 10 ATM machines. So the whole financial infrastructure is not really there. And so what we've done is that we come to the market and we kind of scan what are the existing players that are in the market already that are offering a similar e-money or e-wallet products. And that's where we come to know this company called Bcash. They are the largest e-money player in Bangladesh. And I believe they have more than 10-20 million users in the country. Okay. So at the time we invest in Bcash, what they do is that they have a e-money wallet that is based on USSD technology. That is, you can use a feature phone. You use SMS technology to kind of give instruction to whether you want to fund in or fund out, or you kind of do a P2P transfer with your feature phone. So what we have done is that with the prices of the smartphone decreasing, with the continuing development of the 3G network and 4G network in the country, we think that ultimately the USSD technology is going to be phased out and being replaced with a kind of a mobile app based e-wallet products. So what we've done is that after our investment, our team has been working very closely with Bcash, and just show them how we develop a mobile app based e-wallet. Also share with them our experience on how we acquire customers, and also share with them how you should think about prioritizing your use case. Is online merchant your top priority? How about utility payments? Offline merchants, should you go after KA? Should you go after mid-sized merchants? Should you go after long-tail merchants? And when is the right time to launch your lending solutions? When is the right time to launch your insurance products so that you can better monetize your user base? So yeah, so after we come in, we kind of share our experience with our portfolio company, and I would say we have helped them to transition or better position when the country migrates from a feature phone-based USSD e-money wallet to a more smartphone mobile app-based e-wallet products. So that kind of gives a flavor of what we're doing in frontier market and how Ant Group has stepped in to help our portfolio companies.
Okay, so my friends in Central Asia, brothers and sisters, we just got the playbook, the secret code, the secret sauce of how Ant does stuff and how potentially we could be learning from them. maybe here to sort of, we just have like, we've already a bit out of time. Everyone knows why I interact here. You know, Paul, you and I have had these discussions about, VC versus social impact, investment, and, fintech. So as well, Puon, you heard as well that Ivan and the group have a developmental aspect, which is sort of in conjunction with what you just said. So why don't we kick in a little bit of a discussion? Paul, why don't you kick in? You can also reintroduce yourself briefly, and if you can dive in on this fintech development side as well.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, hey everybody, to those that don't know you, my name is Paul Bragiel. I run a family office here in the United States, and I'm also the founder of 7 different funds around the world. And so we have offices on every single continent minus Australia nowadays. I've done over 300 early stage investments. And I guess related to fintech, I was a relatively early investor in Stripe. We got there at the Series B level. Yeah, I mean, fintech in emerging markets is obviously one of the hottest topics. And I mean, when you're going to emerging markets, the key thing is you want to go out there and solve problems that are kind of base level problems. You can't go out there and build the craziest VR, augmented reality, self-driving car startup until you have the basics in there. And so I think fintech is obviously, one of those key things. And so, yeah, I mean, whenever we're going to different parts of the world, we're always looking to see, hey, what are the opportunities to go out there, lower friction, bring inclusivity, and, help people get more plugged in. And as you mentioned, kind of with, development and kind of bring people in, yeah, like inclusivity is super important, right? Because, as you bring on these, new billions of people onto these various markets, onto these various platforms, you're actually being, you're doing a lot of development. You're actually helping people become included in the economy. You're formalizing the economy in some ways. For some of these poor countries, you're actually bringing in a tax base, which can be useful as well too. So all these things tied together are super important when you're looking at a new region. And yeah, I mean, in fact, groups like Ant Financial and, groups like ourselves and, a lot of other kind of larger emerging market players, they're always looking at, what are the fintech opportunities here? Also, what's really interesting about some of these emerging markets is that the regulation isn't as strict or maybe not as well defined. I mean, in the US and, parts of Europe, I mean, banking's been around for hundreds of years. So there's a regulation upon regulation upon regulation. In some of these countries, things are more fresher and more malleable to be changed. And so you can go out there and do things, or it's more porous and you go out there and get things started. For instance, like in East Africa, when M-Pesa came out in Kenya, it wasn't because the government mandated it or anything like that. It's just that the regulations were more open and, smart folks at, Safaricom were able to go out there and launch it. And then, when the government woke up, it was a little bit too late. And then you could go out there and then it was really hard to kind of take it back away from people when people really wanted that already. And so, yeah, there's a lot of really cool, exciting things happening there.
Mm-hmm. We'll probably try to get back to a heavier discussion. Let's move on to the next phase. For you investors and folks out there outside of Central Asia to see what's the might of the fintech space, I'm going to pass on the mic to my colleague, Malika, who's been heading the selection process. And we're lucky to have 4 startups that will present, what is being done in the region. Malika, over to you. And sorry for the delay.
Okay, thank you, Hervé. Hello, everyone. I'm Malika Janibek, and I'm a Tech Women Fellow 2020. So at Tech Women, I'm focused on VC and Startup Acceleration Program tracks. In this selection process, being a head of independent judges team was a great honor for me and an interesting experience at the same time. The selection process was transparent and making a choice was hard for all judges team. Our judges team consists of experts from different countries. We had startups with interesting solutions, but at different stages. So as a result, for independent judges team chose 4 startups. Let's see them and listen their pitches. And the first one is IMAN. Mark, your turn.
Thanks, Malika.
I think I was on mute. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So hi, everyone. My name is Mark Zubov, and I'm the CFO of IMAN. IMAN is a full-stack halal finance solution for merchants, shoppers, and investors. So there are 700 million Muslims worldwide that are young, that are digitally connected, whose faith affects their consumption choices. And only 5% of them shop online, and 71% of them do not use banking products. And in places like Uzbekistan, where 90% of population are Muslims, that is much worse. So only 1% shop online, and 94% don't use banking products. Why is that the case? Well, there is no Islamic finance. So while in other countries, like in Sweden, you have Klarna, in Australia, you have Afterpay, in the US, you have Affirm, those all point of sale lenders. In places like Nigeria, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, there is no Islamic point of sale solution. So what we've done is we built a halal Klarna that can be used by any merchant, online and offline, or a marketplace. So basically we onboard merchants, allowing them to increase their sales at zero cost to them. And then shoppers come to our marketplace and they can buy anything they want, either on the spot or they can select an installment plan that they like. And it's not just shopping. So our app serves all the Muslims' needs. So anything from education, personal finance, religion, and even investing. And investors really love our product because one, it offers attractive returns. Two, it's an impact investment, allowing investors to fund consumers' purchases directly. And three, it's fully digital and accessible globally. So while we are starting out in Uzbekistan, our vision is really to build this digital gateway between Muslim investors based in developed markets and Muslim shoppers based in frontier markets. We have two revenue streams. We charge merchants a percentage of transactions, and we charge investors a percentage of profits they generate through our platform. We've been live in Uzbekistan for about 4 months. We have a $50,000 installment portfolio. We have over 6,000 users, over 100 merchants connected to us. We haven't had any defaults or non-performing loans to date. And we just raised $1 million P2P investment from one of our merchant partners. And we have bootstrapped the company to date, having invested over $100,000. And now we're in the process of raising our first external round of up to $2 million. And we believe that we are the best team to achieve this ambitious vision because we have previously worked for companies such as Goldman Sachs, Amazon, IFC, and many others. And some of our team members have already launched and exited fintech startups, both in developed markets and frontier markets. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one.
Thank you. So next one, Landing Star.
Hi guys, my name is Slava. I'm a co-founder of Landing Star, so the platform connecting business and investors. So the company is losing about 10% of their sales revenue for each 2 months of unpaid receivables. And there are a few buyers and supplier challenges existing on the market. So the one is the cash flow, which is not only SME or supplier challenge, but also the big corporation. The corporate tried to fix this problem, extending the payment terms for their suppliers. But it's caused the disruption in supply chain and even losing the key suppliers, which might increase substantially the procurement costs for the big corporation. So actually, the Landing Star focusing primarily on the corporate buyers and their small or medium suppliers. So we actually targeting the smallest supplier base of the big corporation, which represents more than 90% of the total supplier base of the big corporations, with the invoice less than 100,000 K each. So what we propose to the buyers and to their suppliers, just for the suppliers, we provide early payments opportunity for their working capital kind of a problem. And for the corporate buyers, we even propose the extension of the payment terms up to 90 days. In a competitive landscape, so actually we compete with various kind of proposition from the world, from the markets like banks who provide like a factoring or invoice financing services with the government funds and so on. But how we differentiate, so we are providing not a loan, we don't need a credit check, and we don't require any collateral for this. So so we launched in Malaysia, working with a few companies, big corporations in Malaysia and Kazakhstan. And so far, we onboarded about more than 100 SMEs on suppliers, processed about 5 million invoices on the platform, onboarded about more than 500 private and institutional investors, and provided them more than 20% of annual return. The platform is owned by ourselves, so we developed by ourselves. So we have a very nice functionality connecting to the corporate ERP system and supply chain system. So we have a good credit scoring facility, which is tailored particularly for some particular countries specifics and integrated to the credit insurance company. So how we earn money is we take in small fees from the SME suppliers and from investors. For corporate buyers, it's a free service. So I'm a personally, as a CEO, I have more than 20 years in IT and worked in 5 years in Microsoft. So my operational team lead, he's managed more than 15 years various software development teams. So for the next 12 or 18 months, so we expect to originate more than 100 million of invoices on the platform. We have license in Kazakhstan already and working in Malaysia, and now planning to open up business in Emirates, and next year in one of the Central Eastern Europe countries. So currently we are in a kind of soft investment round. So we're looking for some equity investments, but particularly the debt investments, which we already commitment from various UK funds to provide the financing for the purchasing of receivables on the platform. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Vyacheslav. And the next one is Senim.
Okay, just a moment, please. Slava, could you please? Okay. Just a moment, please. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Daulet. I'm co-founder and CEO of the project Senim. Senim is an application that allows you to make mobile payments and has the functionality for both users and businesses. For users, Senim is a smart wallet with a convenient services and cashbacks. For business, it is an alternative to a bank POS terminal with an ability to create own in-app loyalty program, get interest-free short-term loans, and detailed business analytics. To maximally cover potential users, we decided to focus on two groups of services. Services for drivers and services for passengers. For drivers, we offer a cool way to pay without leaving the car for gasoline and parking. In addition, we will soon launch services for buying car insurance, paying for toll roads, paying for a car wash, and so on. As a result, drivers will be able to pay and buy everything they need for their cars in our application. For passengers, there is an easy way to pay for public transport fares and track the movement of buses. In addition to this service, next year we will add a bicycle rental service in our application. Our services have provided us with rapid growth. Over 10 months, the number of users has grown from 20 to 165,000 users, and monthly turnover from 10 to 75 million tenge. Unfortunately, this growth has temporarily stopped as a result of the pandemic and quarantine this year. However, our services for drivers have excellent potential during quarantine, and we plan to scale them enough by the end of this year so that they will help us confront the second wave of the pandemic, if it will come. In terms of market share, we plan to become the largest mobile payment system in Kazakhstan within 5 years, with a market share of over 10%, which is about 5 billion USD annually. The market conditions and our competitive advantages will allow us to achieve this goal. The market of services for drivers is underdeveloped, and there are practically no strong competitors. We have integrations with the system of 3 largest gas station networks, And within 2 years, we plan to connect most gas stations in Kazakhstan. We also have integrations with public transport operators in 3 cities, and in the next 2 years, we plan to enter all cities in Kazakhstan with this service. We have our own in-house development team, allowing us quickly develop new functionality and respond to changes in the market. Currently, our team consists of 17 people, including 11 developers and 3 product managers. Besides this, we are planning to enter neighboring countries, for example, Uzbekistan market. At the beginning of this year, we already had negotiations and agreement with our Uzbekistan partners and developed a plan to enter this market. We are ready to enter this market next year if we attract necessary investments. That's it. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Dolet. And the last but not least is smart gas.
Hello to everyone. My name is Aydar. I'm glad to present you a smart gas system which unites gas stations, corporate clients, and the drivers. Basically, we are changing and improving the way you interact with gas stations. The corporate clients dealing with fraud and losses on fuel up to 30% only in Kazakhstan. Up to $840 million are being stolen by drivers annually. And they still have to issue fuel cards and install an expensive vehicle identification devices. As for the gas stations, they are losing money due to problems with attracting new and keeping the old corporate clients. They want to attract more corporate clients and provide superior services. To solve these problems, we are replacing coupons and fleet cards with electronic system. Drivers are paying at the pump just using the app. Very easy and very fast. We have in total 14 chains. We are strong in Kazakhstan and have also clients in Russia, Turkey, and Kyrgyzstan, like Shell in Russia, Lukoil, and Petrol Ofisi in Turkey. Potentially, we are ready to easily launch like plug and play at 93,000 gas stations across the world, including US, China, and Europe. Next 3 years, we are planning to cover Silk Road countries, so that Chinese fleet drivers through the entire road from China to Europe will be able to pay at the pump using fuel balance. In our app for corporate clients might be easily used by third-party apps, such as banking apps, popular driver apps. We have agreements with third-party applications with 8 million users in total to provide payments at the gas stations via our system. We are planning to cover 15,000 gas stations and reach turnover of $7 billion. We are earning on transaction fee, SaaS model, and white label. Year to date, we have earned 140K. Next year, we are planning to reach $8 million. We have a great team with rich background. Each one is a professional with more than 10 years of experience in certain areas. Just recently, we have raised investments from large VC from Singapore and partially completed the round. And now we are searching for $250K to scale to new markets. And we will be glad to negotiate on details. That's it. Let's disrupt gas station market together.
Thanks, Aydar. Okay. Malika? Can I jump in?
So thank you, Paul. Startups. As I say, it was so hard choice for all the independent judges team. So thank you. I would like to give a word to you, Hervé.
Thanks a lot. Ivan, Puon, Paul, some impressions. Some startups here, Malika and the team came up with at various stages. Hello, are you there? Uh-oh. Ivan?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, some first impressions about the breadth of fintech startups selected here.
No, I think the ideas are definitely very interesting, and it also very consistent with the themes that we are seeing elsewhere in the world. For example, the buy now pay later product, I think is a huge trend going in Europe and in Asia, and I think right now they are also starting to get a bit of traction in the US, and also the fuel card example. There's also something that we have seen quite a sizable company that offer similar service in the more developed countries, and and I think these are pretty good ideas. And
Okay.
thanks everyone for sharing your ideas and also presenting to us.
Okay. Thanks for your comment. Puon.
Yeah, likewise, thanks from me to all of the founders and the companies for the presentation. Very interesting. I think it's interesting, you know, when you think about, you know, in my prior life, when you're looking at it from a straight financial investor, you're looking at the materiality of the problem set that you're trying to solve, and therefore the market size, right? I mean, if you're investing, you know, let's say in my Series A, maybe 5 million, or in the Series B, I'm looking to deploy maybe 10 million or more. You're looking at a, you know, depending on the round, a 3 to 10x kind of return. And so you're looking at, if you do the back of the envelope calculations, you need to reach a pretty sizable, you know, revenue base to justify that kind of, you know, investments that you're making. And so you start from the materiality question of how large is this pain point? It's not enough, I think, to just, I think it's a necessary condition to look at what friction and transaction problems you're trying to overcome. And a lot of the companies that just presented are trying to solve very specific pain points, which I like. But you know, you're trying to also figure out the scalability of that. What is the size of that? You know, when you reach beyond some of these frontier markets, and so I have a lot of questions around that, and then and so defining the materiality point is very crucial, I think, early on in your pitch. Number 2 is defining either the technical hurdles that you are trying to address that other people find it hard to address, or major incumbents or larger incumbents or potentially larger players would find it hard to overcome from a technical perspective. Or if it's not a technical problem they're trying to solve, what is it specifically about the market that your customers or that ecosystem is having that's very difficult to overcome from an execution perspective. And so, you know, for example, I believe that the area on the transportation and logistics side is a very interesting component, because there's just still, even today, a lot of friction to move things from point A to point B to point C. And if you can reduce that friction cost, that there is a huge opportunity set there. And I think it's an area that's ripe for opportunities, particularly in developing countries. And we've invested in these kinds of plays before. I don't think of them as fintech. I think of more as logistic solutions, if you will. And but again, you're trying to figure out the materiality of the market, the materiality of the challenge that you're trying to solve. And so those are kind of things that I tend to think about.
Okay, great. Paul, any comments, or we can skip directly to the Q&A?
I mean, no, just quick comment. I mean, I'm happy that they're all picking kind of initial, kind of very targeted markets. But I mean, the bigger play is if they nail one of these, that potentially they could go out there and, you know, expand off of that. I mean, I love the wedge strategy. So it's like, hey, I'm going to nail out there, you know, Islamic finance. I'm going to go out there and nail, you know, fuel kind of, you know, gas station I mean, yes, you nail one of these, and then potentially you can find adjacent markets. That's always the goal too.
Okay. So I guess, Paul, you have to run, right?
Yes.
Pretty soon.
Good seeing everybody. I have to go and actually give another talk in another part of the world. Same seats, but different location. Have a great great day, everybody, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Talk to you soon. So Q&A. We put we have 3 moderators. We're going to be introducing themselves, and then it's divided by country or region, so to speak. Please, let's start with the introduction of all of them, and then we dive in with Kazakhstan, and then Uzbekistan, and Georgia. Amir Khan, intros, and then your questions, and your guests. I understand you have.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you, Erve, and the TUZ team for arranging this conference. So my name is Amir Khan. I'm a local tech entrepreneur, at the same time venture investor in some local startups. So we have several questions from local tech community. Let me start from the first question. So the question is like, what type of technology startups or companies are in the acquisition radar of Ant Group?
Ivan?
Sorry, I didn't quite capture the question. Would you mind repeating again?
Sure. Let me repeat it. Yeah. So the question sounds like, what kind of technologies or startups or companies are in acquisition radar of Ant Group? So what's your pipeline or technology pipeline that you are going to invest or acquire in coming years?
I think if you look at our track record, we have been very consistent about what we are investing. Payment will continue to be an area of our major focus, because it's really our bread and butter business, and there are lots of disruptions and new ideas that are coming into the payment space. For example, e-wallet will continue to be an area that we are keen to explore more. Remittance, how do you use technology to lower the cost for remittance, both from a consumer and also from a B2B remittance perspective, just to give an example. So that's one. And the second area we will be continuing to look at is that how we can better serve our merchants. Because for a payment transaction to take place, there's a consumer side, there's also a merchant side. And I think especially in this kind of COVID-19 environment, we are increasingly seeing that merchants are adopting digital solutions to help them to adapt and survive in this very challenging time. For some previously, this order had solutions or food delivery solutions. This type of company, they find that their business is very hard to scale, especially they need to deploy a lot of people on the ground to knock on the door to acquire the merchants. But COVID-19 came in, all of a sudden, these guys, they no longer need to spend money to acquire their clients, right? Because every corporate or every company, every restaurant, they are looking for ways to transform the business to survive in this time. And then thirdly, we have a phrase on what we call the basic meaning blockchain technology, AI, security, IoT, and then cloud computing. We often see ourselves as a technology player. So the basic technologies, all the 5 areas that I mentioned about, they will continue to be our key focus of in-house R&D. And at the same time, we also look out for trends. What are the startups that are really innovative in these few areas? And so those will be the areas that we will be looking at.
Amir Khan, go ahead. You've got, let's say, we're going to have to shorten our time, but please go ahead.
Yeah, the second question, I mean, it's in some major markets like US, maybe Europe, maybe in China as well, there are cases when startup is launched to be sold to the big tech giants. So you know that, yeah, some startups are launched by founders to be sold to Google, Apple, etc. So is there any success cases of this, the same case in case of Ant Group? So is it possible for the founders to launch a startup and to discuss strategy with you, to have you in the board maybe, and then to sell the startup to the Ant Group?
Yeah, we are not actively doing that, to be honest, for a couple of reasons. First reason is that we see ourselves as a disruptor, and we see ourselves as a startup, even though we are very sizable, right? And hence we are always testing new ideas in-house. And if there's an idea, we always have the manpower. We also have the financial resources for us to develop the ideas in-house. And very often when we go out and look for potential investments, those are the times that we don't have the ideas, but someone else did it before us, and someone else did it very successfully. And hence that's the case that we need to go out, we need to invest, or we need to acquire the company.
Okay. Yeah.
So in short, probably no, I haven't seen any cases, especially in the international market.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So yeah, in Kazakhstan, we have a, let's call it the ecosystem builder, which is authorized by the government. Since the market is very in beginning stage, immature, so government is like investing into development of the ecosystem. And let's call it ecosystem builder or ecosystem operator. We have so-called Astana Hub. Let me give the next question to the Astana Hub CEO. Marjan, please, can you show up and tell a bit more about Astana Hub and ask your question?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about Astana Hub. Please let me share some slides. I'll just briefly introduce you Astana Hub. So Astana Hub is an international IT and startup hub. Our mission is to develop startup ecosystem and support high-tech projects in order to increase the economic growth of the country. So we have certain KPIs to achieve. For example, by 2022, we are planning to get almost $200 million of investments attracted by our startups. And by 2025, it is expected to reach $500 million of IT export. As for today, $35 million have been already invested in Astana Hub startups since its grand opening in 2018. And here you can see some numbers of Astana Hub and our major achievements at this point. For example, we have more than 40,000 attendees, visited 800 events held in Astana Hub. We got a community with more than 2,000 participants, and they constantly use our 26 R&D labs. And for example, we have more than 300 IT companies become our participants of our tax regime. So they totally revenue was $80 million in the last 2 years. So in one word, Astana Hub is a big pipeline. We are working hard with representatives at every stage of technological business development, from secondary school students to tech giants. So to make this pipeline work, we have to create an ecosystem. So Astana Hub ecosystem contains the following 8 key sectors. For example, we are working hard to promote the idea of technological business among general public, also working hard with IT education and so on. For example, we have various educational programs, business programs, and I would like to especially mention Alem Coding School is the only one coding school in the world operating on O1 edu system, founded by Nicolas Sadirac. As you know, Nicolas Sadirac is a founder of Ecole 42, the very famous coding school. Yes, as I mentioned, we also have business programs, both for beginners and mature companies. Another big direction of Astana Hub is corporate innovation programs. Astana Hub performs as a major platform of communication between government, corporations, IT companies, startups, and technical brokers. For example, recently we did collaboration with Coca-Cola company among our IT community. So we have received a lot of applications from our community and participants got the prize. Besides, Astana Hub is located in the middle of huge modern innovation cluster based on the Expo legacy. We have beautiful infrastructure surrounded by other ecosystem players. For example, Astana International Financial Center, IT University, comfortable hotels, restaurants, shopping mall, and so on.
Amirhan, sorry, Mike Chan, please, if you could ask your questions after your presentation, if you could go a little bit faster, please, because the other countries are waiting. Sorry.
Thank you for your attention. And I have a question. What kind of market metrics or fundamentals are key for Ant Group to be considered as a target market for Ants to enter this market?
We actually don't have any hard matrix for us to measure whether we want to enter into any markets. And but very often, for example, the country size in terms of population or in terms of economy size is somewhat important, because for tech investment, very often you require a sizable team to develop your infrastructure, and then you can scale. If it's a population of very small, then it's hard to justify for the investment. And at the same time, we also want to see whether there are good entrepreneurs, hungry entrepreneurs, and that are willing and that are capable and hungry for success and are willing to kind of dream big and launch something new that really change the way that people make a payment or people engage in lending or insurance products. So yeah, there's no kind of set answer or set matrix that we use, and very often we kind of judge it from more aspects and possible, and really based on individual cases.
Thank you.
Amirhan?
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you, Marjan, for introduction of Astana Hub. So I guess we are moving to Uzbekistan.
Yes, please. Thanks a lot. Timur.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. Yeah, the Astana Hub is really impressive project based on the blueprint that is just so. And congrats for your success for launching the program.
Thank you.
Congrats to Astana Hub. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Timur Rahmanov. I am with Abu Dhabi Uzbek Investment Company. Our investment company was founded by the government of Abu Dhabi and Uzbekistan's Sovereign Wealth Fund. We provide long-term capital to private enterprises in Uzbekistan, and as well as capital, we provide institutional support. We have a declared capital of $1 billion. We have started our operations a year ago, and we're looking to invest and co-invest with international investors into the private sector of Uzbekistan. Due to the time constraints, I'll try to sort of wrap up my questions first to Ivan and then to Puon. So regarding your possible investments of Ant Financial, do you usually use a SPV or a fund like Zhejiang and Small and Micro Financial Services Group, or you usually sort of invest directly from Ant Financial corporate office in Hong Kong?
Yeah, it actually doesn't matter, and we can do both. And the reality is that these days, no matter from a regulator perspective or from your counterparty perspective, they always look at the investment on a see-through basis and trace back to your ultimate shareholder. So using which entity to invest is a matter of tax. Whether we use a Hong Kong entity, whether we use a Singapore entity, whether we use a UK entity, it depends on the location of our target company, and then and also which entity we use, and the jurisdiction of the entity, whether we can maximize the tax savings at the time of investment or at the time of exit. That's the most important question.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. And then the second question, I'll actually combine this, two questions together. Based on the publicly available data, you have made over 160 investments so far outside of China. Do you usually prefer a controlling or a non-controlling stake? And what's the average ticket size, if you will, if there is such number?
Yeah, I think for us, we are more of a corporate venture capital team within a company. So for whatever investment we made, we would require the portfolio company to have certain synergies with our existing business. We don't just invest for financial returns. With that in mind, it actually doesn't quite matter whether the company is an early stage or kind of mid stage or late stage, as long as it can add value to a business. And in terms of size, again, it also doesn't matter as well. So for the smaller size, I've seen maybe millions and maybe or less, and then up to a significant size, maybe a couple hundreds of million or even more. And in terms of minority or majority, again, it also depends on the purpose of our investment, right? Let's say if we want to, if the company actually has the product that we can't build, or has certain resources that we don't have right now, or has the talent pool that we don't have right now, then that would tend to be on a full acquisition, right? And if the investment is to kind of foster the relationship between the portfolio company or Ant, then that tends to be more a minority investment. So again, it's also on a case by case, and we are really flexible with our approach.
Understood. Well, so clear. Thank you. So my next question is to Puon. Puon, you have mentioned that you're sort of considering investing in frontier markets, and including Central Asia, and that this new platform is supposed to sort of execute work on impact investing. Now, what's the trade-off between your expected returns from these investments and the actual impact?
The way I kind of think about this approach to investing is that the company has to be sustainable, right? It's not about, you don't look at it, or at least I don't look at it as sacrificing returns per se. It's about, is that business model that the company is pursuing a sustainable business model, right? Or is it a more of a charity, right? Because that's not investing, right? That's, and so when you're looking at venture investing, it's all probabilities anyway. So it's not a question of that you're going to be guaranteed some sort of return per se. It's just more of a question of given the risk inherent in the investment, can you at least argue that there's something there that at the end of the day if you only return 5% instead of 15% IRR, is it something that at the end of the day you can feel good about, that it's going to have a material impact in improving people's lives at the end of the day? And that can make the difference, right? If you're looking at, you know, tech startup evaluation, and you're looking at something that's particularly in the early stage where evaluations are meaningless at the end of the day anyway, it's, you know, I think you have to start off with the fundamental problem is this really addressing a fundamental issue? And I think if it is, the returns should follow, right? If the business model is a good business model. If the business model more, it's a charity, then you have to say that's not the right financing source, right? It's, you know, you need to go to more philanthropic or charitable capital source, right? I don't know if I've answered your question, Timur.
Yeah, you have. I mean, basically, you know, there's this one of the largest microfinance institutions in the world based in Bangladesh called BRAC, is actually a charity, but nevertheless, they return. The returns have been phenomenal over a lot of years. So, so those two things. The question was, you know, sometimes certain business models have a similar rate of returns, right? Industry specific return, even if it's you know, based on a venture model, let's say microfinance. So the question is, do you, you know, sort of consider investing in microfinance if it does have some technological aspect to it? And then if you do, then would you, you know, sort of expect the returns as if you would be investing in just a lending startup that doesn't have this, you know, consumer lending, let's say? But you have answered my questions.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Moving on now to Georgia, the Caucasus, representing the Caucasus. Mariam?
Yes, hi.
Yours?
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you here today. I represent Georgia. I represent the country which is on the gateway connecting Europe to Asia, where we have kind of intellectual resource hub. And in recent years, our entrepreneurs startups have achieved a lot, have expanded on global markets. So we are very proud that the innovation ecosystem is rapidly growing in Georgia. Saying that and raising the appetite of the investors attracting in Georgia, I will have the questions to Puon Penn. I will combine two questions, and later I will give the floor to our stakeholder representative, our entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, who will have the question to Paul Bragiel. But before we move to others, Puon, thank you very much for your inputs and all of the great questions which have been raised by my colleagues. My question would be what metrics you're tracking when considering an investment? And for instance, would be the governmental matching fund be an instrument in order to raise the appetite to invest in Georgian startups, for instance?
I'm sorry, the last question about the government matching.
Matching grants, where the government is putting the same amount as a matching fund to invest in startups. Because we kind of have these instruments through which we kind of raise the, mobilize the resources, but would that be something you would kind of consider as a kind of first step when entering the new markets?
Is that a non-dilutive form of investment, or
this is
that more of a grant?
This is just a grant.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think for me as an investor, the role in which governments can play is in helping either secure regulatory or legal uncertainty, you know, reducing that piece. That's beneficial for an investor, particularly from outside. Two is the due diligence on the founding team, right? Because if I'm not in situ and I don't have a team there to do the due diligence, or even if I did, it's not matching the technical challenge of trying to understand who it is that I'm putting money into. And so to the extent that the government gives it's imprimatur by backing a team, I'm expecting that that government has a rigorous process for screening the individual in terms of KYC, reputational issues and that sort of stuff. There can be, I think, a opposite problem or challenge when a government actually is backing something, in that you could be creating a PEP situation, right? You know, if the government is, particularly if it's non-dilutive capital, and you're investing in a specific startup, and for many larger financial institutions, and certainly for the institution that I used to represent, that makes it a little bit harder for us, because you have to then scrape to see that this is not a PEP issue. So that's something that you need to be careful with, I think. And I don't know if I answered your first, I don't know, Miriam, if I answered the first part of your question. Did I miss it?
So yeah, basically the metrics, if you have
the metrics
when tracking, well, if you're like metrics, what are you tracking when considering the investments? If you have any specific standards?
I think it depends on the stage of the investments. You know, when you're talking about really early stage, it's a little bit early to talk about metrics. It's more important to understand the innovation, the technical aspects of it, the founding teams, and then understanding from the founding team what are the KPIs that they should be held accountable to, or they want to be held accountable for by me, and you know, as an investor. So that's a little bit more interesting. In terms of later stage investing, I think, you know, again, it's looking at and backwarding the types of KPIs that would get you to the valuation that you should expect as an investor that may make sense in terms of return. So if you go do that calculation, I think you should all be doing that calculation yourself, right? What kind of a market size, what kind of ARR, MRRs do you need to reach to get, you know, based upon a valuation metric that you expect to get in order to justify the investments by the investors if they're expecting X return. And that's a fairly simple calculation that everybody should be doing. But I don't understand why a lot of startups don't do that. It's just simple math.
Noted. Thank you very much. That was really very interesting. I guess on that regard, Georgia is doing good, being top 7 in ease of doing business, with the friendly environment of making the business, as well as conducting the due diligence with the international expertise when providing the matching grant. So thank you very much. Now I will turn and I will give the floor to our great representative of ecosystem, David Chechelashvili, who himself is a serial entrepreneur who joined the team and also attracted the 500 Startups Accelerator in Georgia. And he will have the question to Paul Bragiel. So David, floor is yours.
Sorry, Paul is gone.
Paul is gone.
Paul,
okay.
Yeah, Paul had to leave.
Okay.
So
no,
sorry?
David had another question with Puon Penn.
Okay.
David, are you online?
Okay.
Okay.
So if he's not online, can he text you the question, or then we're gonna have to wrap up the day and move to the country profile?
All right. So.
Okay.
I'm online actually
David
now.
Okay. Please, David.
Hello, everyone.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, I was in some kind of a different mode without any voice or.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. So I want to ask like really two very short, brief questions. The first one, okay, the video is on now. The first question is, when you make a decision to invest in a startup from one of the frontier markets like Georgia, for example, or other markets, would you consider investing in a local Georgian entity, or you would require them to open the entity in the legislature that you are familiar with? If not, what would you consider? What would make you consider doing so? Is it legislation related or other thoughts that you have? And the other question I have is, would pre-screening from international recognized brands like 500, for example, would it make a big difference for you in terms of looking at some of the deal flow and being present at the local demo days? So would it make easier for you to look at the countries like Georgia, because we have 500 regional center of 500 here?
So who do you address the question to? Puon and Ivan?
I think Puon Penn.
Okay. And then after that, we move to the country profile. Puon, yours?
So the last question was with regards to pre-screening. Obviously, parties that have some track record of understanding startup and startup ecosystem, I think is helpful. It's not a sufficient condition, obviously. And I missed the I'm sorry. It's what's the first question was?
The first question was if you when you decide to invest in the entity from one of the frontier countries like Georgia,
right.
would you invest in a local Georgian entity? And if not, what make you to invest in a local Georgian entity versus them requiring to open the entity in Hong Kong, for example?
Yeah, I think the prior in my prior life, I would say definitely easier if the entity is outside of the United States. In my new platform, I think we have more resources that we can do the due diligence and understand the specific in-country regulatory legal infrastructure that is in place. I think it all comes down to the riskiness of the local jurisdictional, regulatory, and legal framework, number one. And number two, the challenges, regardless of where the entity is located, of doing due diligence on the principals and other investors in that specific startup, right? I think those are risk, very material risks that I think a lot of folks don't understand. It's not just the business risk itself, but the risk of who you're getting in bed with as an investor, because you're basically getting married, to the founding team. And you also want to understand who, conversely, are the other investors. And in frontier markets like this, I think, you want to be very thoughtful. This is an editorial, so I apologize, but you do want to be very thoughtful if you're planning on seeking institutional money in subsequent rounds, perhaps not in the early rounds, but in subsequent rounds, you do want to be very thoughtful about who are in your cap table, right? The wrong or unsavory character in your cap table, even in seed stage, will make it difficult for subsequent investors to come in unless you somehow get them out of the cap table before that, right? Because what institutional investors like myself hate more than just losing, well, almost as much as losing money, is losing money because of reputational issues attached to the investment.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Amir Khan, Mariam, and Timur for leading this Q&A session. We're moving now to the country profiles. We've got 2 countries represented, Kazakhstan and Georgia. Originally, we were planning to have Uzbekistan as well, but unfortunately, the representative could not make it. So we're going to kick off with Kazakhstan and Kairat, who's going to present the unique. We spoke a lot, actually, about the regulatory aspect. So Kairat, as 2 minutes to let us know what's so good from the regulatory perspective. And I know it is quite interesting. At the same time, we've shared a report that AIC has produced on the fintech space. Zari, if you can post it once more. Let's start, Kairat, and then Avtandil in Georgia.
Yeah, thank you, Herb. Thanks for this interesting discussion here. I see a lot of friends, a lot of people we know, and want to say hi to our guests from China, including. As today we have, I think I have two thoughts relevant to this discussion. First of all, it's related to fintech topic. As AIFC, Astana International Financial Center, is more dedicated to develop financial services and particularly fintech as one of our main pillars. We develop fintech from two sides. From one side, we established a fintech hub, a special entity building a fintech ecosystem. And from another side, we have an independent regulator where we have a sandbox fintech lab, which allows to test, allows fintech small companies, startups, or starting fintech business in Kazakhstan companies test their product, test regulatory regime in sandbox regime with a lot of waivers. We position ourselves as center of excellence and the center of competence in fintech sphere in the region. Recently, we have issued a fintech ecosystem review in the region with our partners, regional partners from former Soviet countries and the CIS countries. Where please, can my colleagues share this review?
It's done.
Okay, thank you. It's first. So fintech is one of our main pillar in AFC, and so if you do fintech startups, please welcome. Second point I want to mention is VC, so venture investment at all. As AFC, as a English common law based jurisdiction, we are developing a VC and position ourselves as a VC hub also. Why? Because English common law jurisdictions allows us to use and allows companies registered here to use a very flexible approach in venture business. I mean, relations between investors and startups, founders and co-founders or co-investors, etc. So we've structured first 10 startup venture investments into startups from a local fund, Kazakh Singapore fund, Quest Ventures, and did it. I think it's the first time in history that in Eurasian region startup deals were structured like in classic venture way with convertible notes and all this necessary in venture business stuff. In this term, I think we are something like Singapore or Hong Kong, and it's very unique in post-Soviet region because of this unique jurisdiction. We are going to issue a special guidebook in terms of structuring venture deals. And so I believe in our probably next meeting, next month, we can share with you this guidebook. And for all startups and investors, we invite everybody to, if you do startups, you have to structure it in the right way. Step. So I want to invite to AFC. here in Astana, we are building a whole ecosystem, like starting with structure in the AFC, and then you have heard the presentation of Astana Hub, which offers a lot of waivers and tax exemptions. And we have also Kazakh Ventures is a fund of funds, which plays a role of LP in venture funds, which also like facilitate VC capital attraction in the region, to the region. Thanks.
Thanks, Kairat. Georgia Aftandil? Well, the plan was to have 2 minutes, but apparently it has to be reciprocity for everyone. So Aftandil, your floor, and then we're going to wrap up after this.
Yes,
it's for Ivan already, yes?
Hello everyone, good evening. I will be very brief. I will try to do it in 2 minutes. So as it was previously mentioned, Georgian government decided firmly to support innovation ecosystem development in Georgia, and my agency, Georgia's Innovation and Technology Agency, was one of the frontier in order to support startup ecosystem and innovation ecosystem overall. We have lots of programs in order to support the community development, even financing the hackathons, creators, makeathons, and small as possible in the innovation agenda and innovation ecosystem. We are also having building the infrastructure. We are creating the tech parks all around the country in big cities in order to give access to the population to have access to high-tech equipment, but also mentorship, coaching, and then advices that is very important in order to develop their ideas. And we are also having the access to finance program. We are financing startups with different kind of granting schemes. We have up to 15,000 Georgian lari granting scheme, which is the micro grants. We have then up to 100,000 Georgian lari granting program, and we have maximum up to 650,000 lari granting program per startups. So overall, we are spending around 30 million Georgian lari per year in order to develop ecosystem. And one of the main actor actually in Georgia, and I would say regionally, is the 500 Startup Accelerator, as it was mentioned by David, who entered into Georgia, and it's placed at a regional accelerator program because we have startups not only from Georgia but from other regional countries as well. And we are also actually Georgian private sector was also involved in this. They are investing in all the startups who will be selected in the accelerator program. And overall, our ecosystem is growing rapidly, and we are seeing the trends, and more actors from private sector are involved in financing, supporting, and even creating the new startup projects here in Georgia. So we think that the trend will continue, and definitely fintech is one of the areas that we have quite strong startup ecosystem here in Georgia. And I would like to say that from the legal framework, we have done a lot of reforms. I will just explain the latest legal initiative, not initiative, already reforms that was already adopted by the Parliament of Georgia. It's regarding the IT companies. So any IT companies who are operating in Georgia and creating the products from outside of Georgia, and they have offices here in Tbilisi, so they have huge tax incentives. So the income tax has reduced, which was even it was comparatively low if you compare to all other countries all around the world. It was 20% flat. Then now it is reduced till 5%. So companies pay from salary only 5% to the taxes. And another tax incentive that we gave to the IT companies is that the corporate profit tax, we also reduced from 15% to 5%. So they are only paying 5%, and there is no property tax, and there is no VAT. So, I mean, there is a huge, actually, the incentives for international IT companies to open their offices here in Georgia, employ Georgian citizens, or even bring their people here in Georgia. We're also open to that. So basically, we are quite committed to develop innovation ecosystem, and we are happy to also answer any questions later on if someone is interested to get more information about this.
Thanks a lot, Aftandil. before we have some concluding remarks, any comments, Puon and Ivan, about the frameworks, the regulatory frameworks and the tax incentives, all what is being offered by Kazakhstan and Georgia?
None for me.
Okay.
You know, I'm kind of neutral with regards to tax. I think it's more of, you know, the general atmosphere that you create for business is important. But, you know, when I make investment in the United States, we have very high taxes, but, you know, it's particularly when you're doing venture investments and you're expecting the kind of returns that you are, the tax rate is very secondary. I think it's more of transparency and accountability of the overall government regime that's more important.
Okay. Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, good. Ivan?
Yeah, thanks. No question from my side, and I appreciate the presentation, sharing information by the team here. Really appreciate that.
Thanks. So we're going to wrap up here. I mean, we are wrapping up. Before that, why don't you and Malika present the team? I mean, very rapidly. It's supposed to be quick. So each of them, please go ahead.
Yeah,
I think
thank you very. I would like to introduce our judges team, which consists of experts from different countries, and we start from the Alim Hamidov from Kazakhstan. So
please,
Alim,
guys, 20 seconds if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Alim.
Okay, who's still here? No, Yedil is here.
Yeah, but I'm here. Pleasure to meet all the new faces. My name is Adil Ajubayev. Happy to be on the board of judges for this event. Founder of a few companies, Peak, Human Enhancement, a few others. Have been an advisor and a mentor for a few startups and acceleration programs, and sympathize with all the startups today, and appreciates all the feedback of the experts, and wishing 100x to all the investors and startups.
Thanks.
Thank you, Idil. And then next one, Taras Balbur.
Hello, everyone. It was a very great event, and I'm proud to be here and to be a judge for such great startups. I'm from AFC Fintech, and today maybe AFC is the best place in Central Asia for any fintech startups to start business in Central Asia and some other regions. And we organize different types of support for startups, and mostly for fintech startups. And I invite you to Kazakhstan and Central Asia.
Thanks, Taras.
Thank you, Taras. So that's all.
That's all. Everyone is gone. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for putting this together. It was quite interesting over the past few weeks. You committed to show and demonstrate what's good about Central Asia on the fintech space. I am sure Ivan and Puon and Paul appreciate it. They can see the mites taking place, and we will be following up. I will be debriefing with them at this to everyone. Thank you very much. As always, we're not on time, but it was productive time, everyone. Puon, Ivan, a word of goodbye. I think the whole community will be happy to hear your voice the last time.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Really appreciate that, and also appreciate everyone to join the call. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks as well from me, and safe conduct to all of you and all your loved ones.
Thank you. Wise words. Central Asia, thanks a lot. 2 series, share with all of you guys, and next time is going to be even better. Inshallah. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, Ivan. Bye, Puon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot again. Bye.